God is good. Karma is the law of nature. You reap what you sow.
You can't hide.
And this entity,
Come here. You can't hide from me.
this life is about choices.
I want your soul.
Choices.
Come on. Yeah, we just chillin', counting up to a new ceiling. Got that ancestral healing, got that high-rise feeling. Voices of diaspora, singing louder than they ever could imagine. Welcome to church. Welcome to the holy service, yeah. Welcome to church. Let the choir sing now. Amen.
Welcome to Chuch. I am the Reverend Point Blank, and I don't care what you think. Listen carefully, and please don't miss a wink. This is brought to you by the voices of the diaspora. We gather with love and trust. Welcome to Chuch is where every heart is the dust. I'm the widow size of comedy, standing firm on this here ground. And karma is the echo from every step and every sound. We plant seeds in the soil of truth, so we believe. Every word that we speak, every dream that we conceive. Luster is the shadow that always deceives, but karma is the river returning everything you breathe. Look and see who you are. The mirror asks deep down inside, where are you going in this life on this infinite ride? Time is your currency and legacy is your lifelong guide. And you should learn to trust it and never let it slide. Because karma is the harvest. It's the truth that you cannot hide. Mind you, elevation is power, but pride makes you fall. The higher you rise, the louder the call. Forgiveness is not cancer. It's a chance for you to stand tall. Earth is not broken. It's honest through it all. So let this be a wake-up call, a spark in the night. We are the voices of diaspora. We rise up in the light. Welcome to Chuch, where we speak the truth. And the truth always takes flight. We start with unity, because this is all of our fight. I do have one more thing I'd like to lay on your mind. You must understand this game and master the nine. Do the math. You have nothing to lose. It's the powerful choice, and it is for you to choose. But if you decide not to do it, you probably won't last. Make this your guide and create your own path, or suffer the consequences of its aftermath. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Look at the solar system they call Pluto or dwarf. It was another way to mask the trick, of course. They use it to make you buy more at the store, and I guess that's fine. Except they make you think the deal is complete in your mind, because the last number on the digit always ends with 9. When you have a child, see how long it takes. If you remove the baby before its time, the death will be its fate. So learn to master the 9 and keep your mind and life straight. Up next is the breakdown, and you'll understand it best. They will break it down for you and explain the rest. Mike and Mika, put it to the test.
So imagine this. You walk into a church today, right? You grab a bulletin from the front, and you see that the choir director is officially listed as Deacon Sucker Dick.
Yeah, that would definitely make you do a double take.
Right. And then you see the church treasurer is named Sister Ho. I mean, you would probably just run for the door.
Or you'd assume you had wandered into some highly offensive sketch comedy show, honestly.
Exactly. But see, Reverend Point Blank would tell you that your urge to run away in that moment has absolutely nothing to do with being offended.
Not at all.
He would argue that you were actually terrified of this invisible mirror standing in the foyer.
You're terrified of a space that just refuses to let you hide behind that polite religious camouflage.
It is the ultimate pattern interrupt. Because, we are so deeply conditioned to expect our spiritual and philosophical spaces to be totally sanitized.
Well, completely.
We expect gentle metaphors. We expect the rough edges of human nature to just be filed down before we even step foot into the sanctuary. Yeah, we want the safe version, but the source text we are diving into today, it's called Karma and the Natural Laws of Church. And by the way, that is Church, spelled C-H-U-C-H.
Right, the spelling is crucial there.
It operates on the exact opposite principle. It essentially weaponizes the gritty, unfiltered reality of the street to aggressively dismantle those artificial constructs of traditional morality.
And it really is aggressive, but it's not just provocation for the sake of getting a reaction.
No, not at all. And that's what we're going to dissect today. Because this is a highly systematic synthesis of street wisdom, ancient biblical principles, and immutable natural law.
It's presented as a stand-up dramedy, but right beneath that theatrical surface, it's this rigorous, almost mathematical exploration of cause and effect.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to really extract that core operating system that Reverend Point Blank is presenting to you, the reader. But to understand the architecture of this philosophy, we really have to start with the environmental pressures that forged the architect himself.
You really do.
Because the text opens with a very specific declaration of his origin. He grew up in the Chicago ghetto, but he immediately follows that up by stating, I'm not ghetto-minded.
And that distinction, that right there is the foundational thesis of his entire psychology.
Yeah, how so?
Well, he is identifying his point of origin without allowing it to define his intellectual or spiritual circumference, if that makes sense.
Right, like he's claiming the geography, but not the mentality.
Exactly. He acknowledges the intense, unforgiving environment of that machinery without actually becoming a cog in it. He studied the game instead of just, being played by it.
I look at that as a masterclass in psychological detachment. He was in the pressure cooker, but he was literally taking notes on the thermodynamics.
That's a great way to put it.
And the text reveals exactly who taught him how to take those notes. He explicitly credits this dual education. On one side, he has formal seminary training, and he pastored a traditional church in Texas for 5 years.
Right, so that's his formal institutional theological framework.
But the actual operating system, like the root code, was installed on the streets of Chicago starting at the age of 9 by his mentor, a man he calls Mr. T. Lloyd Taylor.
The street curriculum and the contrast between those two educational environments is just staggering.
Oh, it's night and day.
You have the seminary, which is highly theoretical, right? You're analyzing ancient texts in a safe, controlled environment. And then you have the street, which is entirely empirical.
Yeah, out on the pavement. If a theory about human behavior is wrong, you don't just fail a test.
You lose your money, your freedom, or your life.
Exactly. He is taking the PhD level threat assessment of street survival and merging it with a master's in theology. And there's this one line in his dedication to his mentor that is genuinely haunting.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
He writes, I never liked recess. T taught me not to play.
Yeah, that is a heavy statement.
Let's pull that apart, because the psychological implications there are massive for a kid. I mean, at 9 years old, a child's brain is heavily reliant on play.
Biologically speaking, yes, play is the mechanism for safely testing boundaries.
Right, building social bonds, exploring the world without severe consequences. So to be taught not to play at age 9, that means completely bypassing that developmental phase of innocence.
It forces the brain into a hypervigilant adult state of constant threat assessment.
Because playing around implies a margin of error. And his environment dictated a zero margin existence.
You're touching on a really critical aspect of neuroplasticity here. When a child's brain is rewired for pure survival like that, it becomes incredibly efficient at recognizing patterns, specifically patterns of deception, risk, and leverage.
Wow, yeah.
So not playing means viewing every single interaction, every conversation as a transaction with high stakes.
So then you take that hyper-tuned, highly skeptical, pattern-recognizing straight mind, and you place it inside a theological seminary. You place it inside a traditional church structure. What happens?
That mind immediately sees right through the pageantry. It sees the same hustle, the same power dynamics, and the exact same human flaws operating in the pews that it saw on the pavement.
It's like shining a black light over a hotel bedspread.
Okay, that is a visceral...
It doesn't function on a gritty Tuesday afternoon when the rent is due and people are actively lying to your face. He just discards it. It's useless theory.
And this visceral demand for practicality is what drives his complete redefinition of karma. He strips away all the incense and the chanting.
Let's get into that, because the text notes that traditionally we view karma through this lens of Indian religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, right? A mystical moral law of cause and effect.
But in Western popular culture, it has really devolved into this comforting superstition.
Like a cosmic point system.
Exactly. You let someone merge in traffic, and you just assume the universe now owes you a prime parking spot.
Right, we've all done that. But the Reverend categorically rejects that mysticism. He redefines karma as a hard, physical, natural law. He explicitly equates it to gravity.
Which is a huge shift.
And I gotta be honest, I struggle with this a bit. Because if karma is just a biological reality like gravity, an unfeeling law of physics, that feels incredibly bleak to me. Gravity doesn't care if you're a good person. If you step off a roof, you fall.
Right.
So if karma is just the mechanics of cause and effect devoid of any cosmic justice, doesn't that render our intentions kind of meaningless?
See, the text argues the exact opposite. It is precisely because it is a natural law that your intentions and your actions carry so much weight.
Okay, unpack that for me.
He introduces this agricultural metaphor to explain the mechanics of this natural law. He breaks human interaction down into three very specific components. You have the seed, the soil, and the weather.
Okay, so the seeds are our words, our deeds, and our intentions. Every time we act, we are planting something.
Exactly. And the soil, or the ground, that represents the hearts of the people we interact with.
But the critical variable, the one that really shifts this from a standard, Sunday school metaphor to a rigid system of accountability, is the weather.
The weather is everything here. He defines the weather as the state of the mind, the active thoughts of the person who is receiving the seed.
So you could have a premium seed, a brilliant idea, a pure intention, a massive investment of your own personal energy. And you could even have good soil. Yeah. But if the mental weather of the person you are dealing with is a Category 5 hurricane of toxicity,
or a blizzard of distraction, nothing is going to grow.
This is where his street training really heavily informs his theology, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He writes that if you plant your seed in ground that isn't
Holes in it.
a bag with holes in it.
That is just terrible resource allocation.
And that's exactly how he wants you to look at it. We usually think of navigating toxic people as a matter of emotional self-care, but he frames it entirely as resource management.
He's saying it isn't about being a passive victim of someone else's bad mental weather. It is about radical personal accountability.
You have to be a forensic meteorologist before you plant your seed. That is the core of his message here. He writes, and you have to be able to know whether the soil in the heart is right and the weather in the mind is right.
Because the natural law of karma dictates that a seed will only yield a return based on the environment it is placed in.
Right. So if you knowingly dump your energy, your love, or your business capital into a person whose mental weather is totally chaotic, you cannot cry to the universe when your investment dies.
You planted corn in a blizzard.
Exactly. The failure isn't a mystical curse, it's just bad agriculture.
And he anchors this undeniable law of cause and effect directly to the basic biological elements that keep us alive, which I thought was fascinating. The text points out that we survive because of the earth, fruits, vegetables, minerals, vitamins, oxygen.
And he argues that karma is attached to those exact same physical elements. He refers to humanity's shared origin in what he calls the carbon sea.
The carbon sea.
The implication there is profound universality. Because we are all biologically constructed from the exact same carbon, the natural law of karma functions completely impartially.
It does not recognize race, religion, bank account balances.
They're institutional titles.
Right. Gravity does not suspend itself just because you're a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And the harvest of a bad seed does not suspend itself for a pastor. It is the great, terrifying equalizer.
But here's the catch. Recognizing that your mind is the weather and that you are subject to this impartial law that is completely useless if you are actively lying to yourself about your own internal forecast.
Oh man, yeah. Psychological
Joe shot at a building. The real church is inside you. It is the internal architecture of your truth.
But the theatrical device he uses to explore this internal space is deliberately jarring. He mixes real congregation members who come up to tell the true stories of their lives with 9 entirely fictional characters.
And these characters act as hyperbolic archetypes of institutional hypocrisy.
This is where we get back to Deacon lying ass.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Ho handling the money and Deacon Sucker Dick running the choir. When I first read that list, I'm not going to lie, it felt almost absurdly provocative.
Sure, it's meant to be.
But if we analyze it through the lens of what we just discussed, the whole blacklight over the hotel bedspread concept, it makes perfect sense. He is weaponizing profanity to shatter the religious camouflage.
Consider how a traditional institution functions, the stores.
He is forcing the congregation to look at the biomatter.
He is saying, look, we all know the choir director is leveraging his position for sexual favors. We all know the treasurer is skimming off the top. We all know the leadership lies. So let's just stop playing the game. Let's name the rot.
By naming it so aggressively, he just removes the shock value of the sin itself and forces you to actually confront the mechanics of the behavior. But the most intense distillation of this forced confrontation happens right at the front door of church. Over the door,
for healing or worship, they automatically default to a pre-programmed script.
they adopt a submissive, pious, or, defensively polite posture.
They perform being good.
Yeah.
So the drawing of the weapon completely shatters the script. It induces a primal survival state. You cannot perform piety when you are staring down the barrel of absolute unyielding accountability.
The weapon forces the mask to drop. It's a theatrical way of telling the person, look, the lies you are telling yourself are a terminal illness. Your hypocrisy is literally killing your spirit, so drop the act right now. Do you want to live, or do you want to keep playing dress up?
Because the natural law of karma cannot process a fake seed.
Oh, wow.
If you are lying about who you are planting illusions, and the harvest of an illusion will always be zero. You have to pass the mirror to get into the room.
And once you're in the room, stripped of your societal mask, sitting in the Reverend's office with your actual problems, that's when the real diagnostic work begins.
The text states that everyone who enters must answer 3 specific questions. And these are not, gentle therapeutic inquiries.
No, they are rigid existential demands. Question 1, who are you? And he explicitly says, I don't want to know your name.
He uses the examples of Benjamin Banneker and Pinocchio. One, a historical figure of immense intellect, the other, a fictional puppet.
Right, both are gone or imaginary, but their legacies endure.
Yep.
He is asking for your legacy. Who are you in the grand architecture of your lineage?
And then question 2, where are you going in life? And the caveat he adds to this one is just brilliant. He says, and I'm not taking you to the mall.
Let's hover on the mall for a second, because I thought this was such a sharp observation. Why specify the mall?
Because the mall represents mindless consumerism as a substitute for actual forward velocity.
It is the perfect anesthetic for the anxiety of having no direction. Walking around a mall feels like movement. Buying things feels like progress. But it is ultimately just a closed loop of distraction.
He's asking for your true trajectory, totally independent of the consumer distraction society provides for you.
And then the final question, what in the hell do you want from me?
Which establishes the parameters of the relationship. It demands that the individual take full ownership of their own needs and articulate them clearly.
It's like walking into a venture capitalist's office. If you don't know who you are, what your product's trajectory is, and exactly what kind of funding you are asking for, you are thrown out of the room.
Exactly. He is applying the ruthless efficiency of a boardroom pitch to spiritual development.
But what I find so fascinating is why failing to answer these questions is considered so catastrophic in this framework. The text uses incredibly grounded examples. It says that if you don't know who you are and you try to date someone, you just become a burden to them.
Because neither of you knows where you're going.
Right. And if you just want sex, he demands that you be honest and just say it.
The deeper causality here is about the vacuum of identity. The human psyche absolutely abhors a vacuum. If you have not clearly defined an internal hierarchy of values and an internal destination, like if you cannot answer who are you, you will inevitably adopt an external structure to give yourself the illusion of identity.
Which is why the text argues that not knowing who you are makes you a slave to the job.
Exactly. You allow the corporate hierarchy or the toxic relationship to define your worth and your boundaries simply because you failed to build your own.
You basically become a subsidiary of someone else's legacy. Both the aimless relationship and the mindless job are engines powered entirely by confusion. And participating in that confusion leads to what Reverend Point Blank considers the ultimate spiritual crime.
The murder of time.
Yes, let's talk about time.
Time is presented in this text not as a measurement, but as the supreme currency of the universe. He writes, time, no matter what else is going on, is the most valuable, powerful asset on the planet.
Everything else, money, resources, even health, it all fluctuates. But time is a strict, non-renewable countdown.
Now, we hear that time is valuable all the time in self-help seminars. It's almost a cliche at this point.
But the text elevates this by framing the squandering of time, not just as inefficiency, but as an act of vulnerability.
Yes.
If you are burning the priceless fuel of your time on a path you haven't even defined, you are leaving the vault door wide open for the entities that actively want to siphon that currency.
And this transitions us beautifully from the individual diagnostic to the cosmic conflict outlined in the text. The literal script he provides, titled Episode 1, Conversation with Karma.
This script is really the philosophical centerpiece of the whole text. It takes place in this infinite space with no walls and no clock. And it stages a dialogue between the Reverend and the personification of karma, while also defining the opposing force in this universe, an entity called Luster.
Let's dissect Luster first, because Luster is positioned as the devil or the tempter, but crucially, Luster isn't pitching, grand, cartoonish evil.
Right, no horns and pitchforks.
Luster operates entirely on the promise of shortcuts. Luster is the voice of quick satisfaction, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life.
Luster's entire objective is to introduce micro distractions that siphon your time without ever triggering your natural survival alarms.
It's the voice that says, hey, you don't need to master the process, just buy the hack.
And in direct opposition to that frantic, distracting energy of Luster, we have the personification of karma. Karma is described not as an angry deity, but as an entity that is calm, angled, neither man nor woman. Karma is pure, unadulterated balance.
In the script, the Reverend speaks to Karma, saying, I didn't call you for comfort. I called you because people think you're cruel, but I know you're precise.
And Karma's response is just the coldest, most accurate definition of physics applied to morality. Karma says, cruelty requires emotion. I don't feel, I return.
I don't feel, I return. Think about the implication of that. If you drop a boulder on your foot, gravity isn't punishing you.
Gravity isn't angry with you.
Exactly. Gravity is simply returning the physical consequence of your action. Karma operates the exact same way with our seats. The return of the receipt is completely devoid of malice.
But this naturally leads to what I think is the most agonizing question in human history. And the Reverend doesn't shy away from it at all. He actually pushes back against karma.
He does.
He points to the horrific realities of Earth. He asks, why does it hit so hard here? Why do some people who plant nothing but toxic seeds seem to thrive for decades without any consequence?
And Karma answers by framing Earth as a very specific type of proving ground. Karma says that Earth is a classroom that lets students cheat until the final exam.
Wow.
This completely reframes the illusion of getting away with it. The people operating under the influence of luster, who are cutting corners and exploiting others, they are not circumventing the natural law. They are merely accumulating a massive debt with delayed interest.
And when the Reverend asks if the delay is intentional, Karma says, delay is mercy. Most people condemn themselves long before I arrive.
The delay is the time you are given to realize your mental weather is toxic. It's the time to pull up the weeds you planted and to change course.
The delay is the grace period, but the final exam is non-negotiable.
But the text immediately moves to an even more difficult challenge. The Reverend confronts Karma about the problem of innocent suffering.
Yes, he says, but children suffer. The innocent catch stray bullets. Explain that while hiding behind mystery.
This is where I was honestly braced for a standard religious platitude about, God's mysterious ways.
Same. But the text delivers something radically different. Karma's voice lowers, and it delivers this chilling systemic explanation. Karma says, I don't strike children. I strike systems. I strike bloodlines that refuse to heal. I strike silence passed down as tradition.
That is a staggering reframing of generational trauma. Typically, we view generational trauma purely through the lens of victimhood, a curse passed down to the innocent.
Right.
But Karma is stating that when a system or a bloodline is built on silence, lies, and unhealed wounds, the accumulated debt of that system eventually collapses inward.
So the innocent child caught in the crossfire isn't being punished for their own actions. They are experiencing the collapse of the rotten architecture they were born into.
And the Reverend recognizes the weight of this. He realizes that sometimes the person hit the hardest is the one who didn't swing first.
But they were, as Karma puts it, born inside the fight they didn't start, but were sent to end.
That changes everything. It transforms the victim of generational trauma into a specialized operative dropped behind enemy lines.
The pain is the manifestation of the systemic karma. But your presence in that bloodline is an assignment to finally break the cycle, to refuse to pass down the silence.
It is a brutal assignment, no doubt, but it empowers the individual with absolute agency. You cannot control the collapsed system you were born into, but you alone can decide if the toxic legacy ends with you.
Karma then pivots. to address the architects of these broken systems. The Reverend asks why the arrogant seem to fall the loudest, and karma delivers another law of physics. Elevation amplifies impact. The higher the stage, the louder the collapse. Gravity never forgets arrogance or stupidity.
If you build a skyscraper on a foundation of rotting wood, the sheer height of the building only guarantees a more spectacular destruction.
But, this strict adherence to cause and effect raised a massive question for me regarding grace. I asked myself, how does traditional forgiveness fit into a mathematical equation of I don't feel, I return? Does forgiving someone actually break the law of karma?
And the Reverend asks this exact question: does forgiveness cancel you?
Yes, and karma's answer preserves the integrity of the natural law while still allowing for human evolution. Karma replies, forgiveness changes the lesson, not the test.
Let's break down the mechanics of that because it's subtle but important. If I plant a field of toxic weeds, the natural law dictates a harvest of weeds. That is the test.
If I suddenly realize my error and ask for forgiveness, the forgiveness does not magically transform the weeds into wheat.
Right, the harvest is still coming, the receipt must be paid.
Exactly. But the forgiveness changes you. It changes your internal weather.
Because without forgiveness, without humility, you meet the harvest of your bad seeds with pride and anger, which only multiplies the damage.
But if you have experienced genuine forgiveness, your mental weather shifts. When that harvest of weeds arrives, you meet it with the strength and humility required to clear the field and start over.
The impact of the receipt is softened by your internal growth, but the harvest itself is never canceled.
The natural law remains intact, but your capacity to survive it increases. I love that. And karma ends the conversation by giving the Reverend a mandate. Karma tells him to deliver this uncompromising truth because some voices aren't meant to save people, they're meant to wake them up, and sleepers fear alarm and bright lights at 3 o'clock in the morning.
This mandate to act as a disruptive alarm clock bridges us directly into the ancient foundations of this text. Because Reverend Point Blank isn't just writing modern theatrical scripts here, he is tethering his street philosophy directly to the book of Proverbs.
He specifically integrates Proverbs chapter 8.
This is a vital connection. In Proverbs 8, wisdom is personified not as a quiet monk in a monastery, but as a woman standing out in the streets. She's crying out at the gates of the city, right where the hustle and the commerce happen.
She is aggressively calling out to humanity, begging the simple to understand subtlety and the fools to gain an understanding heart.
It is the exact same energy as the invisible mirror at the door of church. Wisdom is out on the pavement yelling, "Receive my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is better than rubies."
The Reverend is drawing a direct line between the ancient biblical demand for wisdom and his modern demand for understanding.
He is arguing that without an understanding heart, without clearing the toxic weather from your mind, all the hustle, all the silver, and all the choice gold in the world will not protect you from the physical laws of karma.
And Proverbs 8 delivers a stark, binary conclusion that aligns perfectly with the pistol at the door of church. Wisdom declares, "He that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death."
There is no middle ground. You either seek the truth of your own reflection and live, or you embrace the illusions of luster and commit slow spiritual suicide.
He synthesizes this ancient binary with his own modern poetry in a piece titled "Karma is the Echo of Every Step." He originally calls himself the witicizer of comedy, and the poem summarizes all the mechanics we've been tracking today.
He writes, "We plant seeds in the soil of the truth so we believe every word that we speak, every dream that we conceive. Luster is the shadow that always deceive, but karma is the river, returning everything you breathe."
And the refrain of the poem is the ultimate grounding mechanism. Welcome to church, where every heart is the dust.
The heart is the dust, the soil. We are right back to the agricultural foundation.
But just as you feel you have a grasp on the entire system, the text executes this sudden, really cryptic pivot in its final moments.
It leaves the reader with a puzzle, a final piece of advice that acts as a test of everything you've just read. He warns that to survive this game, you must learn and master the 9.
Master the 9. It is incredibly cryptic. But he presents 2 highly distinct hints to help the reader decode what mastering the 9 actually means.
The first hint involves astronomy and institutional trickery. He tells you to look at the solar system.
He points out that the establishment called Pluto a dwarf planet to mask the trick. And he connects this masking of Pluto to how stores manipulate you, making you think you're getting a complete deal in your mind when you're actually getting less.
So let's unpack the causality here. Why is the demotion of Pluto the key to understanding Luster's trickery?
Because the demotion of Pluto is a perfect, globally recognized example of top-down reality manipulation.
We grew up understanding a complete system of 9 planets. Then, an institution arbitrarily redefined the parameters, truncated the system, and told the world there are only 8.
The text is using this as a macro metaphor for how luster operates on a micro level in your daily life.
Luster relies on institutions, marketers, and toxic individuals to redefine your reality. They offer you a truncated version of the truth, a shortcut, a discount, a compromised relationship, and they mask the trick by telling you it's the complete package.
It is the psychology of the bargain bin. If you accept that the 9th element can just be erased by an authority figure, you are primed to accept all the other shortcuts luster offers.
You accept the job that pays well but kills your legacy. You accept the relationship that offers comfort but demands silence.
Mastering the 9 means refusing the institutional mask. It means demanding the full, uncompromised equation of the truth, even when the world is trying to sell you a convenient fraction of it.
And his second hint grounds this concept of the complete equation in the most visceral, undeniable biological process we have, human gestation.
He writes, "When you have a child, see how long it takes. If you remove the baby before time, his death will be his fate."
The biological 9 months.
This is the master key to the entire philosophy. It connects the natural law, the currency of time, the agricultural metaphor, and the illusion of luster, all into one unbreakable truth.
A human being requires 9 months of continuous, uninterrupted gestation to survive outside the womb. That is the biological law. It cannot be negotiated, outsourced, or hacked.
If luster whispers in your ear at month 5 that you're tired, that the process is too hard, that you should just take the shortcut and pull the baby out early, the result is catastrophic. Death is the fate.
Mastering the 9 is the ultimate mastery of patience and natural timing. It is the deep understanding that real growth, whether it is the harvest of your seeds, the building of your legacy, or the healing of your generational bloodline, requires enduring the complete cycle of time.
You cannot rush the harvest. Every time you try to circumvent the necessary time a process takes, you are aborting the potential of your own legacy.
Luster will constantly offer you the 5-month shortcut, but karma demands the full 9. If you do not make mastering this natural rhythm your guide, the Reverend warns that you will inevitably suffer the consequences of the aftermath.
Which just proves how expansive and multi-layered this project is. It's not just a book, it's a multimedia ecosystem of constant question.
So as we pull back from this intense philosophical architecture, let's look at the totality of what Reverend Point Blank has built here.
He took the hypervigilant threat assessment of the Chicago pavement, ran it through the institutional framework of theological seminary, and produced a stand-up dramedy that acts as a psychological surgical theater.
He uses shock, profanity, and humor not to entertain but to disorient. He forces the masks off so he can ask you the only 3 questions that matter. Who are you? Where are you going? And what do you want?
And he demands that you answer them before you burn through your only non-renewable asset, your time-planting toxic seeds in a hurricane of your own mental delusion.
He is the bright light and the alarm clock at 3 a.m. He is refusing to let you sleep through the slow collapse of your own legacy.
We have spent this entire deep dive talking about the mechanics of karma. We've talked about your actions as seeds, the minds of others as the weather, and the necessity of mastering the biological patience of the 9. But I want to leave you with a completely different vector to consider, a thought that stretches this ancient carbon-based law into the immediate future.
I like where this is going.
We talked about humanity swimming in the carbon sea, subject to the physical laws of cause and effect. But what happens is artificial intelligence begins to flood that sea.
Oh, that's a wild thought.
If the algorithms on your phone are increasingly dictating the choices you make, what news you consume, what products you buy, and even who you are matched with to date, are you still the one planting the seeds?
That is the question, isn't it?
If a machine is artificially generating the weather in your mind, feeding you targeted outrage or manufactured comfort, who owns the receipt when the harvest arrives? Can you outsource your karma to an algorithm, or are you just handing luster the keys to the tractor? The natural law demands a return. Make sure you are the one actually running the farm.
Yeah, yeah, we just chillin', counting up to a new ceiling. Got that ancestral healing, got